again, Mark here from Talking Bass. Today we're looking at a rock classic, Walk This Way by Aerosmith, with that fantastic bass line played by Tom Hamilton. This tune really shows how great Tom is at creating a funky bass line with interesting bass fills, and you might be surprised to find how tricky it can be to play. So today we'll break down the main riffs and I'll give you some tips on getting them under your fingers. So the song is about 109 beats per minute. Tom plays the original with a pick, but also plays it live with his fingers. First of all, we'll work through the main riffs for the intro, the verse, and the chorus, and then look at the variations and fills. The opening riff repeats a few times through the tunes, and it sounds like this. So, all the lesson material is there with the tracks at the Talking Bass website. There's a link below in the description, so hit that to play along. So we'll start by just working through those notes. So we have open A sharp to B. So, open A, first fret, second fret. And then up to the E at the second fret of the D string. So that's your first part, and then we do it again. Then we hit the open E. We have that 4 times, and on the 4th time, we actually hit the open A instead of the open E, and that leads us into the verse. So from a technical perspective, that's all pretty easy. It's easy to memorize, and it's pretty easy to play. You're only using 2 fingers there, just that first and second fingers for the first fret and second fret. But it is worth mentioning that joint barring can help with moving from the A string to the D string. So when we play from the B to the E there, we can use the second finger, the middle finger, to play both, so B and E. And that allows us to move smoothly between the two. So all we're doing there with joint barring is playing the B with not the fingertip, but just the flat part of the finger, and then we just shift the pressure so that we play pretty much with around that first joint. So you're just moving between the two there. And you'll find that that technique helps a lot with many, many other bass lines. Whenever you've got to move on one fret between 2 strings, you can use that joint barring method. And by the way, joint barring is just a name that I came up with. It's a very, very popular technique, but there's not really a name for it, so I just called it joint barring. In the picking hand, if you're finger picking, I'd advise alternate picking and starting with the index finger. That way we can pick with the longer middle finger on the D string. I'd also advise resting the thumb on the E string for maximum muting, then bringing the thumb back onto the pickup for the open E. So that's the famous opening riff, but it's also worth looking at the variation that we use for the ending guitar solo, which sounds like this. So here it's pretty much the same rhythm, but instead of starting with the A sharp, B, we actually play open E, then G and G sharp, 3rd to 4th frets. So then the second time it's got that same old A sharp, B. Then drop down to that open E, and then again we hit the open A. Okay, so. And that just plays round and round under the guitar solo. So that's the first 2 riffs taken care of. Now let's look at the verse. This modulates from that E7 opening to C7, and it sounds like this. So here we have a pretty funky 16th note bass line that's 2 bars in length. If we work through the notes, we have that first part there, so we've got C and the B flat, so that's C 3rd fret of the A string and B flat at the 1st fret. So we have C, C, B flat, C. Okay, so then we drop down to the open E string, leading into the F at the 1st fret. Then up to the G at the 3rd fret of the E string, so then B flat, back to the G, 1st fret A string to 3rd fret on the E string. So then back to the C. The second bar is very similar. Starts out the same, but after we come back to the C, we drop instantly down to the E, so then come up F, G, so then we have B flat, G, B flat, so a little bit different from the first bar. So first fret on the A string, down to the third fret E string, and back to the first fret. And then we're back into the C. So very slowly, those two bars. Now, I'm guessing that most of you are just going to use your ears for getting the rhythm there, but if you want to get a little bit more accurate, it is worth actually looking at what the actual subdivisions are in there. Now, for the first two notes there, we've got the first and fourth notes of the 16th notes in that first beat. So we've got one E and da. Okay, so one E and da. And that rhythm can throw people a little if they're not used to this kind of syncopation or that kind of style, that kind of funk style, because a lot of rock stuff doesn't use the 16th notes in the same way. This is very funk blues based. So we've got one E and A, two. So if you're tapping your foot, you tap on one, you tap on two, and you have one E and A, two. So your foot comes down on that two. So one E and A, two. One E and A, two. So we're not on the beat, we're just slightly before it. So one E and A, two. One E and A, two. Okay, so that bit might throw you off. You can sometimes end up quantizing yourself to the second beat or to the and, but it's not. It's the A. So one E and A, two. Then the second beat has two E and. So we've got one E and A, two E and. One E and A, two E and. This way of slowing everything down, looking at the subdivisions, playing it incredibly slowly, one E and A, two E and, can really, really help with getting things accurate and tightening it all up rather than just listening to it and thinking, okay, I've got it, another rhythm. You know, sometimes, you know, if you're used to that kind of thing, it's great. But if you're not and, you know, things are sounding a little bit untidy, it's worth really delving into the subdivisions. Now, in terms of the technique here, there are three different ways you could play this in the fretting hand. You could either use the fourth finger and first finger for everything, so that's probably the tidiest way, and that's the way that I play it. So I'm using the pinky there for the third fret, I'm using the first finger for the first fret. But when you get to the end of it, you play that G again to come back to the C. Again, you're going to have to use joint barring, and you're going to be doing it with that pinky. So if you've got a weak pinky, that might feel a little bit tough. See? I'm using that fourth finger, the pinky there, to go from the third fret G to the C. Or you can use the third finger and first finger. Again, using the third finger for the joint bar between the G and the C. Many of you will probably find that easier. It's just not as tidy, and I'm just used to using the fourth finger in there. Or you could use the fourth finger for the first part, but then use the first and third fingers for the second part, so which allows you to then use the fourth finger when you come back. So you play the third finger for the third fret on the E string and the fourth finger for the third fret on the A string. Either way, you know, or any of the ways, it doesn't matter as long as you get the notes under your fingers. So that's the main verse riff, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Next, let's just look at the chorus riff. So here we have a surprisingly rough workout for the hands with this 16th note line. So we start on C, third fret of the A string for a bar, and then F, third fret of the D string for a bar. But we also have the lead up to the F. So when we get to the end of that C bar, we have E flat E to the F. So it's first fret, second fret, third fret on the D string. So that's on the and a at the end. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, and then we're into the F. Then for the F bar on beats 3 and 4 we have we've got this fill. So we start 3rd fret of the D string for the F, slide up to the G at the 5th fret, then B flat, 3rd fret of the G string, G and F again, 5th fret to 3rd fret on the D string, slide down to the E flat at the 1st fret, so, and then we have C and B flat, 3rd fret to 1st fret on the A string, so, and then we're back to the C to start again with our 16th notes, so. So all of that really slowly. 3, 4. So in terms of the technique for the fretting hand, I'm starting with the 3rd finger there for the C, which sets me up nicely for the E flat E to F there, which I play with the 1st, 2nd and 3rd fingers. So then we're on the 3rd finger for the F, and we just slide up that 3rd finger, use the 1st finger, then 3rd finger again, 1st finger, slide the 1st finger, and then we're down to the 3rd finger. So it's all just 2 fingers. So just try playing that riff slowly and just go round and round. Some of you might find it easier with a pick, although I actually prefer playing it with fingers. Either way, just take it slow, and only when you feel confident at a higher tempo should you try with the track. So now we can add a few of the extras. So first things first, in the bar before the chorus, so we're at the end of the verse, we actually have a fast little run to lead into the C, which sounds like this. So it's a little chromatic run. So here we have that second part of the riff. So we've got the C, the B flat and the C, and then we have, so open E string, then 1st, 2nd and 3rd frets. So that's going to be E, F, F sharp, G, and I'm using the 1st, 2nd and 4th fingers for that to play. I don't use 1 finger per fret there because we're in that very low area, so this is more semandal, so you've got, and then we have open A, B flat, and then the B, so I'm using the, well, it's an open string and then it's 1st and 2nd fingers. So that's 3E and a 4E and. Okay, so we've got a little rest before we hit the C, so. And we're into the chorus. Again, I would try practicing this very slowly, and I would also try adding the verse riff and the chorus riff so they get used to playing it in context rather than just playing, you know, instead of just playing that, you want to be playing. You know, play the whole thing. Next, we have the most famous fill in the whole song. This occurs just after the chorus. We go back into the verse riff, but we add this fill on the 2nd bar. So, like I said, we play the riff the same on the 1st time. Then just play that C twice. And we got that fill. So we slide up. We can do this with the 3rd finger. Up to the G at the 10th fret of the A string. But we don't really hold on that G. This is just so that we're in position. So. And then we play the B flat at the 8th fret of the D string down to the G at the 10th fret of the A string. So then it's B flat, B natural to the C, so that's going to be 8th, 9th and 10th frets on the D string. And then we just have E flat to the E up at the 8th to 9th frets on the G string. So a lot of this relies on that initial slide. In terms of the technique, we're using the 3rd finger for the slide up there, and remember to look at where you're sliding to, not where you're sliding from. So you look at the G there, but remember you don't play the G, that's just where the hand is moving to. The main first note we're going to play is the B flat. We're just getting that slide action. Then it's first finger and third finger for the come down, then first, second, and third fingers, and then first and second fingers up at the top. And I'd probably recommend using a hammer on at the top, and then maybe use the first finger to drop back down to the C for the repeat of the riff. And then you can just bring that first finger down to the B flat. And as always, play it in context. Just play round and round with that riff. As well as that verse riff fill, we also have a similar fill in the second chorus ending. So we're in the second chorus, and at the end, instead of the 16th notes, we have and on the F. So we're just playing the first three notes of that: C, 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 F, F, F. But after each of those notes, we have fills. So after the C, we have, and then after the F, we have. Okay, so after the C, we slide up just as we did in our previous fill, and we just play C, B flat, and G. So that's going to be 10th to 8th fret on the D string, 10th fret on the A string. So we use the third finger to slide up again, up to around that 10th fret, but then we just play the note. So like I say, you don't hold on that G. We're not playing the G. That's just where we finish the slide. So, and then we drop down again for the F, and it's pretty much identical to the, but we just come up C, so C, E flat, E, F, third fret A string, first, second, and third frets on the D string, and then first and second frets up on the G string. So, and then we're back into the riff. So that's the basic elements of the song. Now you just have to work through it, adding them together. As for the nuts and bolts behind the fills, these are a great example of working around chord tones, and also an example of how you can shift up the fretboard for a little interest when playing a low repetitive bass line. The verse riff fill occurs on a C7 chord. So it works around the notes of the C7 arpeggio. So that's C, E, G, and B flat. So here in that middle area, I'm playing C, 8th fret of the E string, then we've got E and G, 7th and 10th frets on the A string, and then the B flat at the 8th fret of the D string. That's root, and then a major third, a perfect fifth, and that flat 7, the minor 7. So that's the theory behind it, the harmony, and you can continue playing those notes, just extending up. The fill is based around that arpeggio. But rather than just using the chord tones, Tom introduces some funky blues interest with those chromatic passing note and approach notes. He passes between the B flat and the C with the B natural, which gives us that sound. So we've got that nice little passing note between the two. And then he approaches the third of the chord, the E, up on the top, with an E flat. So we've got that minor to major third sound. And that third approach is massively popular in all forms of pop, rock, jazz, and blues, and it's pretty much a blues move. You can use it on in lots of different ways, and it gives you this kind of sound, that bluesy little move. And as I said, the shift from the lower area of the fretboard to the middle area works well when we want to play fills and jump out from the mix a little. We have the notes in that first 5 frets where we can get, down deep and dirty. So we've got, so we're down here, that's where the groove is, and then we shift up into that area between the 7th and 12th frets for some interest. Because we can get a little bit higher there, again, it's jumping out. So basically, we're looking at that area for the groove of the song, and then this area for all the interest. Okay, so that's Walk This Way. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel for weekly lessons every Friday. There are over 800 lessons on the channel now, pretty much covering every aspect of bass playing, so there's something for everyone. Let me know what other classic rock lines you'd like to see me break down. Also, remember all the lesson material is over at the TalkingBass website, so follow the link in the info below to play along, and I'll see you next week.